John Wick 4. By all accounts, the fourth and final installation in the John Wick series. Although it does end, spoiler alert, with a slight nod to the actual ending not being all that it seems. And they actually foreshadowed as much in the final jousting scene leading up to the end. But John Wick 4, here is the official synopsis. John Wick uncovers a path to defeating the High Table, but before he can earn his freedom, Wick must face off against a new enemy with powerful alliances across the globe, and forces that turn old friends into foes. And as we like to do here on the Spun Today podcast, I want to shout out the writers, because if we don't shout out the writers here on the Spun Today podcast that is anchored in writing, who will? John Wick 4 was written by Shay Hatton, Michael Finch, and Derek Kolstad. Shout out to the writers. Now I wanted to start off by sharing with you guys a fun fact that you may not know, which is that the muscle car that John Wick drives in John Wick 4 is a 1971 Plymouth Cuda. And it's in the movie because in the first John Wick, for example, John Wick drove a 69 Mustang, which is a badass muscle car, but was also like a gift from his wife in the movie. But the fun fact is that Joe Rogan had always mentioned in his podcast after the first, second, third John Wick that the real badass muscle car that John Wick should be driving is the Plymouth Cuda, the 1971. And when Rogan had the director, Chad Stahelski, on the pod, he confirmed as much that the reason why he put the Plymouth Cuda into John Wick 4 was because of Rogan. So I thought that was pretty dope. Shout out to podcasts, man. Shout out to that fucking reach. Another fun fact that I learned on that episode, actually, if you guys want to check it out, I think it's episode, well, I don't think I can actually look it up for you guys right now. Episode 1995 of JRE. The director mentions that the John Wick story, the original character and story, is loosely based on a book. It's not called John Wick, but a lot of the ideas came from that book. And I wish I could remember, and I can't find it, who wrote the book and, you know, what the book title is. If I do come across it, I'll definitely link to it in the episode notes and in case anybody's interested. However, he did say it's very loosely based, and the movie's kind of nothing like the book. Supposedly in the book, there's a few similarities in that he is a retired hitman. He wants out of the life and that type of thing. Certain ideas of the High Table and this group, that shadow organization that controls it all. Certain tidbits came from the book. But in terms of what we know and love of the John Wick franchise, which is mainly the killing and the violence and the fight scenes and the action, none of that is within the book. The book itself, he said that like one or two people die in the entire book, something like that. So definitely not something to check out if that's what you gravitate towards for these John Wick movies, as I definitely do. But I just thought that was interesting and fascinating how, I guess, a relatively unknown story or book can plant a seed that grows and flourishes into this blockbuster 4-movie mega hit franchise that is John Wick. Even though it's in a completely different form and whatnot, it's like you'd never know what it is that sparks the inspiration in something else. That's pretty cool. A couple lines of dialogue that I wanted to share with you guys that I really, really liked. Shout out once again to the writers. One of them is, friendship means little when it's convenient. Just so fucking true, right? It's like that adage of fair weather friends. You know, when shit is sweet, when money's flowing, when you're having good times, when things are enjoyable, you have a lot of quote unquote friends and folks around you that are enjoying from that, which is where the convenience comes in. But once all or some of that goes away, or conversely, when times get rough, when money's not flowing, when there are no parties, are no good times, and you're in times of hardship, that's when all those fair weather friends will poof, disappear, and the folks that you're left with that are still around are your true friends. They're not there just because it's convenient. So that's definitely one line that I enjoyed. Another one is, A man's ambition shouldn't exceed his worth. And that's definitely a sobering line if you're looking at it from a like self-reflective angle. I've heard a similar line, which I think was from the movie Blow. R.I.P. to Paul Rubens, by the way. Pee Wee Herman played Derek for real in Blow. In that movie, there was a line that I love, something along the lines of, you know, when your ambition exceeds your talent. But this line here is slightly different in a man's ambition shouldn't exceed his worth. So it kind of has that undertone of, if you ain't worth shit, don't even dream about being anything more. Kind of a defeating line there, but very interestingly put. I additionally enjoyed this fourth iteration of the movie based on a few of the characters that were very interesting. I mean, you have obviously the staple main characters like Keanu Reeves, obviously, who plays John Wick, Lawrence Fishburne, who plays the Bowery King. It was bittersweet to see Lance Reddick, bitter in that he passed away as well, R.I.P. Lance Reddick, who played Sharon. But it was sweet in, you know, being able to see him one last time, which this was probably the last role he acted in. It was either this or White Men Can't Jump, but I think it was this. You had Clancy Brown in this, which played the character of Harbinger. He is most known to me for being the asshole / kind of cool guard towards the end from Shawshank Redemption, who was the right hand of the warden, who kind of looked out a little bit for Andy Dufresne as well. You have Ian McShane's character again, plays Winston. We had a couple of dope new characters, starting with, in my opinion, Bill Skarsgård, who played Marquise. He's the main villain bad guy in this one, who essentially wants to take over everything and wants John Wick dead. You have an amazing character played by Donnie Yen, who plays Kane. He's this blind Asian dude that is in the same line of work as John Wick and also looking to, like, he wants out basically. And he's given an ultimatum by the Bill Skarsgård guy, Marquise, to hunt down and kill John Wick, and then he'll be given his freedom. And if not, his granddaughter would be killed. He was a great fucking character. Then you have one of my favorite characters in the whole movie called Tracker, played by Shamir Anderson. He was this black dude with a dog that he had trained as an extension of himself that was also in the same line of work as John Wick. And he, similar to John Wick, seems to have a code, a moral compass within himself, aside from the fact that these are all contract killers. But think from a character development perspective, think like Omar from The Wire. How, you know, he was a bad dude, robber / drug dealer, but had a code, you know? Every man's got to have a code, quote unquote. Damn, then there was this other dude that I can't find his name. I don't remember the character name, and I can't tie that to the actual actor name. But he played this, again, another guy in the same line of work, a big fat dude that just wouldn't die. He was super strong, and he's actually in fat suit, kind of similar to how they did with the Kingpin, was it, or Penguin? I think the Kingpin in the latest Batman movie. I was just a fat suit and a lot of makeup. It was a similar deal here with this character, but he did a really good job. And he was an interesting, scary, strong, ruthless fucking foe that John Wick had to contend against. And then, as always, the fight scenes do not disappoint. You have a dope fight scene that starts off with an arrow being shot when they're hiding on the roof of the Continental, and they're being ambushed, essentially. And this long fight scene ensues. And that ultimately spills out into the street, and then he's dealing with cars coming for him and motorcycles, and he's on foot, and it's just sick. There's another fight scene in this abandoned warehouse that he runs into, and they did something interesting from the cinematography, I guess, perspective, where they showed a view from above a couple different times throughout these scenes that took place in this abandoned house, and it just looked really cool. Like, it really worked. It felt like you're playing Zelda or something, you know? It just has that overhead top-down view, but it was an interesting way of seeing where people were and where they were headed towards, and then it would pan from that back to the normal first-person view or you know, camera behind John Wick, etc. I thought that was pretty cool. There's a flamethrower gun at one point that was fucking sick. And then, of course, the most amazing fight scene happened towards the end when he is going to this agreed upon rendezvous point, and by he I mean John Wick, where the dude that is planning on taking over the high table, Marquise, the Bill Skarsgård guy, I think he was already in power at that point, but via their protocol, he says the only way John Wick could have his freedom is if he agrees to duel. I called it a joust earlier, I meant duel. But instead of him dueling, he has the guy Kane duel in his place. Again, giving him the ultimatum that if he doesn't, he's going to kill his granddaughter. And that if he does do it, he's further incentivized by the fact that he'll get his freedom. So on the way to this rendezvous point at sunrise, the Marquis character, playing dirty as villains do, just throws everything and everyone at John Wick and wants him to be killed, before that point in time, basically. So on the way to that duel, there's this huge outdoor staircase that he has to climb up very, very far, like going from the A train to the J train at Broadway Junction far. Super long steps, like the Joker steps in the Bronx that they show in the movie, The Joker. And there's mad people that have the high ground coming down at John Wick. And he's just shooting and fighting and tossing and throwing and cutting and just fucking people up on the way up and getting knocked back down and fighting his way back up and getting knocked back down. And then the Kane guy, which he also has this moral compass about him, starts helping John Wick, even though at the top of this staircase, they're going to have that duel. But he wants it to happen, if it needs to happen, the honorable way. So he's on John Wick's side. He's helping him. The other dude that I mentioned that I liked, the tracker character, he starts helping as well. And eventually, after a very long, very dope fight scene, he makes it up there. So, spoiler alert, by the way, if you guys haven't seen the movie, you probably don't want to hear this part. But ultimately, the duel happens. And the way it works is that the rules are they have to take 20 steps apart and draw and shoot. Someone dies, the other person wins. That's it. If they both miss or if they both are still alive, then they take 5 or 10 steps towards each other and to do it again until they're literally in front of each other. So by the third shot, it looks like Kane got the best of John Wick. Even though Kane already got shot once or twice, John Wick as well, but then John Wick doesn't get up. So it shows him as dead, essentially. Then Marquise, the Bill Skarsgård, played by Bill Skarsgård, his pussy ass tells Kane, no, give me the gun. I'm gonna do the final shot, a shot in the head or something like that to John Wick. Now all of a sudden he wants to be down, right? He wants to be in it. He goes to John Wick, and then they point out how John Wick never fired his third shot. He's like, what? And then John Wick right there just gets up and shoots and kills Marquise. He was wounded though at that point from the second or third shot from before from Kane, and then they show John Wick eventually collapsing and to make it seem like he died. Now the conspiracy theory, if you will, is did he die or did he not? Earlier on, he had told Winston and the Bowery King that if he did die, he wanted to be taken home and laid to rest next to his late wife. And they show a scene at the very end of the movie with John Wick's tombstone and both Winston and the Bowery King there. And they say something snarky, something I don't remember exactly, but something to the effect of, would you have ever thought that you would have seen the day? Speaking to, John Wick being dead. Then they kind of look at each other and smile. And one of them says, nope, I never did. And it was kind of like a nod to, wait, is he dead? Is he not dead? Are you guys covering up? Are you guys, so this whole high table shit doesn't come back around again and want to kill John Wick? Are you guys giving him an out and faking his death so that nobody could ever come after him again and just leave him be type of thing? That's what it comes across as. Or it could very well be that, yeah, he's dead and they're going to tie out the series that way. And what I meant by the fact that they foreshadowed it, him possibly still being alive with the scene directly before then, was the fact that they showed him as dead before Marquise went up to shoot him just to make sure again. But he wasn't dead, and he, got up and shot Marquis unexpectedly. So I feel like that was kind of foreshadowing the fact that maybe he's not dead at the end, and, he'll be coming back down the line, but we'll see. What I will say is that bumping that theory or idea up against the director Chad Stahelski's appearance on JRE is that he did kind of make it seem that if Keanu was down to do another one, that he would definitely do it. And he also alluded to them being in talks of doing spin-offs with other characters, like Halle Berry's character. For example, she was in, I think, John Wick 2 or 3. She loves the series, like she wants to do more. And also a spin-off, I think he said like a prequel type of thing, series about the Continental, and I think Winston and Sharon, stuff like that, something along those lines. So if John Wick doesn't come back directly himself, I would think that we'll at least get other iterations from this franchise in the form of spin-offs. And just to tie things out, last thing I'll say is that I believe Derek Kolstad may be the gentleman that wrote the book that the John Wick character is based off of, because according to IMDb, it says based on characters created by Derek Kolstad. Don't quote me on that part. There is a book that exists where some ideas came from that may or may not have been written by Derek Kolstad. But again, if I clarify those details, I will definitely update that information within the episode notes. Either way, John Wick 4, definitely recommend. It's worth a watch, especially if you guys are fans of the previous movies in this franchise. It absolutely does not disappoint. John Wick 4, check it out.